This video is sponsored by Opera GX. Oh yeah, this is happening. Wait, hang on. Wait, no. My seamless gaming experience is being intruded upon. Who dare I say it is you dastardly little browser. You're trying to eat my RAM and GPU again.
No, I'd never do such a thing.
Explain my gaming performance then.
Well, these are just the kind of resources that a browser needs to function.
You lie, generic browser. Who are you? I am Opera GX, the web browser made to liberate gamers from lag and performance issues. With my mighty GX control panel, you can control how much bandwidth I consume, as well as RAM and CPU.
Oh, I don't believe it. That's not possible.
You'd better believe it, generic browser. I can get the job done without consuming their entire computer system. Geez, that is swell, Opera GX. What else can you do? My sidebar allows you to integrate your social media channels for convenience. No need for countless tabs to be open. When you have access to your social media apps such as Instagram, Twitter, and Discord right there in your sidebar. Easy to find, easy to use. And don't get me started on the GX Player, which allows you to play your favorite streaming services all in the one place. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, you name it, we have it. Dang. Take a hike, generic browser. I'm going with Opera GX. You know that I am also available on your mobile phone. Sure, but it's always such a hassle importing all my preferences and bookmarks and such. Ha, silly pup. It's easy to connect the mobile version of me with the desktop version. Well, hot dog, can we get a QR code for that so the viewers can download it? Already up. You've changed everything, Opera GX. Guys, be kinder to your GPU. Download Opera GX for free with the link I've provided in the description below. Thanks to Opera for sponsoring this video. Let's move forward. It was in 2013 that the DC Extended Universe launched with Man of Steel. Now, 10 years later, we're starting again. More or less.
Tell me, did you subscribe? You will. And you'd better not forget to hit that like button as well. This video is not sponsored by Wayne Enterprises or LexCorp, so check out the Patreon link in the description below and consider making a monthly pledge. Men are still good.
The story of the original DC Extended Universe is one of indecision of leadership. These movies would be the brainchild of Zack Snyder. Wait, nope. Jeff Jott. Nope. Walter nope, not him either. Dwayne The Rock. No. These movies were all part of a connected universe until they weren't. And we'd be seeing through the stories of Henry Cavill's Superman, Ben Affleck's Batman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman until we didn't. They just kind of stopped. But Henry Cavill's coming back to fight Black Adam, except no, he's not. Exhausting. How is anyone supposed to get invested in a universe structured like this? Non-committal is how I would describe the old DCEU. But we had the merger of Warner Bros. Discovery with David Zaslav taking over things and wanting to appoint a sort of Kevin Feige for the DC universe, if you will. Someone to oversee all the production, someone to oversee the development of this franchise. Chosen were James Gunn and Peter Safran. Now, James Gunn, I thought, was actually a really good choice. He's a very talented filmmaker and storyteller. He prioritizes characters, he actually demonstrates a really good understanding of comic books and the subgenres that can come within that kind of world. Not only that, James Gunn is a man who can right the ship. Suicide Squad 2016 is what I would consider to be one of the worst movies ever made. A Frankenstein of a vision that didn't really bode well with me, with very transparent studio interference. A nasty, cynical, patronizing film. Then James Gunn comes in to do a pseudo-sequel, pseudo-soft reboot, which was amazing. Still the same continuity, still the same universe, a new vision that made sense, and a damn good movie at that. Then of course we have James Gunn's second DC Universe contribution, the Peacemaker series. Again, absolutely fantastic. While ultimately my preference is the Snyder stuff, James Gunn's entries into the DC Extended Universe were some of the highest quality we'd gotten. So I felt very positively towards James Gunn being the new sort of Kevin Feige of the DC Universe, if you will. Another thing I thought was great, though, is that the leadership is someone who is also a field guy, if you will. This is a guy that has worked on sets, that's had visions for films, that's made his own movies, not just from like a background producer standpoint, but as a director. James Gunn is a story man, he's not a businessman, and that's something I was thrilled to see because he's going to have a good understanding of the kind of environment that a filmmaker needs to tell the story they want to tell, unlike, say, Walter Hamada. This is a really good move. At the same time, I don't think that James Gunn's style would work for everything. However, I would like to think that he's not going to approach this entire universe with his style. I don't want to see a Superman movie that's gory and full of curse words with a load of 80s music playing. That just ain't Superman to me. Then we have Peter Safran, who is a bit more business-minded. I feel like he's there to kind of supervise James Gunn in a way and answer a bit more to people like David Zaslav. I'm not really saying that based on a huge amount of research, I won't lie, but Peter Safran was like a producer on the Shazam movies and they were good. He just doesn't necessarily have quite as much of an involved relationship with production as James Gunn does. So far, James Gunn has been much more the front man, and I'm just hoping that there's more to it than just being the front man necessarily. I'm hoping that he gets lots of creative input, and from the sounds of things, yes he is, as the first thing we learned about James Gunn's new approach to DC was that James Gunn would be writing a new Superman movie, one without Henry Cavill. Yeah, this new DC universe kind of got off on a bad footing with me, and a lot of others too, as the first thing we would learn about James Gunn's new DC universe was that Henry Cavill would not be Superman anymore. This came mere weeks after he was announced to return as Superman for a publicly announced Man of Steel 2, and there was of course the Black Adam after credits. Now what this was ultimately a changing of the guard. The people who stepped down had a different view to the people who stepped in. They wanted different things, and ultimately, the people who stepped down announced something basically in their dying breath as the producers, that the new guard are just like, nah, okay, we're not gonna go with that. We'll talk a bit more about Superman and Henry Cavill later. This very much began speculation of what James Gunn would be doing with the DC Universe, though. This sounded like they might be doing a full universe reboot, as we are recasting quite a major part of this universe. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a huge part of me that was thinking it should be, because then we can at least be excited for a fresh start for new creative possibilities. Something homegrown, no leftovers, every casting feeling purposeful, but also just my personal feelings were, if you're going to keep anything around from the Snyder era, it's Henry Cavill as Superman. The man is just gold dust in that role. The man just is Superman. Boy, does it suck being a Man of Steel fan. And this instantly got James Gunn's new universe off on bad footing to me. Part of me was like, why not just announce the new reboot or something and get off on a positive foot? But I kind of get it now. If you were to announce the new universe and be like, yeah, Henry Cavill's not come back as Superman as part of that conversation, all the new stuff, all the new information would be met with negativity from the people who liked Henry Cavill Superman. It's like, even people that didn't necessarily like the Snyderverse, I know plenty of people that said that Henry Cavill was a great casting as Superman. So I guess I get it. Start with the bombshell, and then we can mourn for a bit, as Henry Cavill said, and then be excited about the new stuff. But what I was hoping for was a full, complete, top-to-bottom reboot of the DC universe. And I guess part of that is selfishness, because it's like, okay, you took out my favorite component, so now let's just take out the rest. I mean, Man of Steel was the very first movie in the DC universe, so, like, you've gutted the foundation out of it, so now gut the rest. But now that speculation is kind of put to bed, as we now have an actual rundown of the DC Universe's future slate laid out by James Gunn and Peter Safran. We know what the future of the DCU is going to look like, so let's do a quick rundown. So first of all, we have the remainder of the current DC universe. Now, a lot of people have been wondering, why do we need to invest in these movies when we know that universe isn't going to go on? And I suppose the quick answer is entertainment. You know, what movies are actually made for. Go be entertained by them. And not so much, you know, in hopes of a sequel. But it does turn out that these remaining movies will lead us into the new DC universe. That these will not be completely inconsequential. James Gunn kind of opened this thing by saying that Shazam can slot quite easily into the new plans, as he hasn't really had any meaningful interactions with the DC universe at large before, and fair enough. I said myself that, you know, Zachary Levi sticking around as Shazam makes a lot of sense. Now, then there is, of course, the recent controversy surrounding Zachary Levi. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is because James Gunn has commented on it. So, recently, Zachary Levi said that he agrees that Pfizer is a threat to the world. Now, today people typically associate Pfizer with the COVID-19 vaccine. However, what Zachary Levi was really referring to was the company Pfizer, who do have a history of various misconducts and fraudulent marketing with their drugs. So it is basically a matter of guy has his reservations about a corporation. You know, whatever. And I guess, as I've said on Twitter before, I think there is a bit of a difference between being wary of the COVID-19 vaccine and being outright anti-vax. Which is why, personally, I don't think that Zachary Levi has said anything outright harmful necessarily yet. It could lead into some weird stuff, but hey, chalk it up for what it is. I got nothing to say about it. I'm not condemning the guy. I'm not rooting for him. I got nothing. Commenting on this, though, James Gunn said that a lot of his collaborators will say things on social media that he disagrees with and things that he does agree with, but he's not willing to change his whole entire plan, his whole entire future vision for the DC universe, just because someone says something that he disagrees with. What he did also clarify, though, was that people who have done things that are morally reprehensible, that's a different matter entirely. So it sounds like domestic abuser Amber Heard isn't going to be in the fray. I suppose I can kind of vibe with this, I guess. But the question is, like, where do you draw the line where, you know, saying things that people disagree with can actually become morally reprehensible? Like when Kanye West says he loves Nazis, that's not really someone I want to cast in anything, you know? Not that Kanye's an actor, but you get what I'm saying here. And I'd hate to think we'd have actual bigots or, like, transphobes or racists or anything like that playing superheroes. So it is a question of where he draws the line. But the bottom line is, yeah, things are going forward. Zachary Levi slots into the new DC universe. Shazam! Fear of the Gods still matters, so I guess we can all go see it knowing that we haven't seen the last of Zachary Levi as Shazam, which I'm fine with. Then we have The Flash, releasing in June, which sounds like the launch pad for the new DC universe. Which is what it was actually intended to be back when they were going with Hamada's vision. Only now that the big universe-bending outcome is the new James Gunn-helmed DC universe, rather than what would have been the more Walter Hamada-centric vision. Now, James Gunn has had only the most glowing things to say about this film. He said it's like one of the best superhero movies ever made. Now, let's bear in mind that he is the head of this studio, so he is going to ultimately try and sell the movies, even those that he's not involved in, so I guess I will wait and see for myself, but promising stuff. So from the sounds of things, no, The Flash isn't just going to end with a setup for a brand new universe that's not going to come to be. They are going to link it directly in with the new DC universe. Then, of course, we got Blue Beetle, which apparently that slots in just fine, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which releases Christmas Day for some reason. I mean, who's going to see a movie on Christmas Day? Anyways, this is where things get a little bit confusing, because Aquaman is releasing after The Flash. Now, it could be set before it, but it's releasing after it. And it may well be set after The Flash, which is bizarre, because this movie still features Jason Momoa as Aquaman, when we don't really know if he's going to be moving forward as Aquaman, or whether he's going to be recast into Lobo. So it's like, if you have that big universe reset, and then you have Aquaman release, and then he's getting recast after that, it's still a mess. But Peter Safran did reiterate that these 4 movies still matter, and there's no reason why any of the characters or the actors that play these characters cannot be a part of the DCU. And there's nothing that prohibits that from happening. That they'll be incorporating characters from the past, but mostly new casting. So, out of the gate, it's not a full reboot. Okay. But what is the future looking like for the DC Universe? We're beginning with an animated series, Creature Commandos. 7 episodes written by James Gunn, it's already in production, it's a team of monsters assembled to fight the Nazis. Now, interesting that we're kicking things off with an animated series, but not only that, this animated series will connect directly to the DC Universe. It's all in continuity, they want to have the same actors playing them in live action as they have voicing them in the series, which I think is a cool approach. It's really nice to see that animation is being properly enveloped into this universe. A little similar to what Marvel did with What If, but I guess a bit more consequential as it is actually feeding into the main story. We are also starting off with something a little more obscure, but this sounds cool. Then we have the Waller series, which will feature Viola Davis back as Amanda Waller. Who would have thought that a character that made their debut in Suicide Squad 2016 would go this far into the DC universe? But you know, that's fine by me. I never had any issues with Viola Davis in this role, and I particularly enjoyed her character in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad and the Peacemaker series, so I'm interested to see where that goes next. It does look like, yeah, the Peacemaker and the Suicide Universe, I guess, wow, what a horrible name for that, but I guess they are being enveloped into the new DC Universe. But then we have the beginning of what James Gunn refers to as Chapter 1 of the DC Universe, Gods and Monsters. This is where the true canon begins. Now my question is, what does that make the movies that came before it? Is that like Chapter 0? Is that like the preliminary era or something? That's the thing, is it kind of factors in, but it kind of doesn't at the same time, because this is treated as the beginning. And if that's the case, and like The Flash is the thing that kicked all of this off, well, The Flash is a sequel to Justice League and Batman v Superman, and like what's the canon version of Justice League? And like, yeah, so those are still questions. This is still a very muddy, messy approach to things. This continuity still more closely resembles the Archie Sonic comics run than it does the DC Universe. It begins with movie 1, Superman Legacy. So like the previous DC Universe, it's opening with a Superman movie. It's penned by James Gunn. It's going to feature a Superman in his younger years, obviously not played by Henry Cavill, who's kind of juggling his new life on Earth and his Kryptonian heritage, kind of deciding who he wants to be. Which is actually not that much different from the subtext of Man of Steel, but what do I know? Focusing more on like a Superman who's like a kind man in an unkind world. Which is a lot like Batman v Superman when you think about it. I think the tone is going to be a deciding factor here. I think it's going to be like kind of what Snyder did, minus the 29/11s that happened in Man of Steel, and Batman attempting to murder Superman. And I guess I'm okay with that. I hope we're not going to get some Richard Donner filleting film, because don't get me wrong, I love the Richard Donner Superman movies. At the same time, there's plenty more ways of adapting Superman, and it's really sad to me that we completely rejected Snyder's version when really there wasn't really any departure from Superman himself. It was all about the tone, it was all about the stories they were trying to tell. Superman himself was perfectly faithful. At the end of the day, I'm hoping that Superman Legacy will be kind of a nice middle ground, I guess. But that's coming out in 2025, so 2025 is the true beginning of the new DC Universe. Following that, we have Lanterns. Finally, something Green Lantern related in the DC movies. It's about time. And there's always been that speculation of which Green Lantern will they use. Well, they're using both Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. And it's going to be kind of a buddy cop movie of this sort of intergalactic authority investigating a villainous threat on Earth. It's going to be a series. Really cool idea. Then we have The Authority. Now, I don't know so much about this one, but this is like a superhero team. These are Wildstorm characters, and they're going to be part of the core DC universe now. They view the world as broken. They want to fix it by any means. That sounds cool. I don't know much about The Authority from the comic books or anything like that, but that sounds like a cool movie, so yeah, I'm game. Cool. Following that, we've got Paradise Lost, and this is our first piece of Wonder Woman representation in the DC universe, although it won't really feature Wonder Woman because it's a prequel. It's going to be a Game of Thrones-esque drama set in Themyscira. Okay, cool. That sounds like a cool idea and a cool new way of doing like the comic book subgenre. Kind of like a DC's answer to Game of Thrones. Neat. Then we have The Brave and the Bold, not to be confused with the animated series starring Diedrich Bader, which was awesome, by the way. The Brave and the Bold is the Batman movie of the DCU. This is going to be a brand new Batman that we've never seen before, and it also sounds like an approach that I'm very enthusiastic about, as at the center of this movie is Bruce Wayne's fatherhood to Damian Wayne, his little ninja son. Bit of a problem child, bit of a brat if you ask me. And you've got Bruce Wayne, who's kind of this idealistic figure, no killing or anything like that. juxtaposed with, you know, the son of Talia al Ghul. So that's going to be a cool dynamic. That's something I'm excited about. But more so than just that, this is going to be the first live-action Batman movie to feature the extended Bat family. Now, I don't know if they're necessarily using all of them, but that could include Batgirl, that could include the other Robins, that could include Tim Drake, it could include Nightwing, maybe even Red Hood. At the same time, it might not, you know? Like, they might be omitting some things. Maybe Red Hood's not a part of it because they maybe want to do the Red Hood story later down the line. But you know what's kind of funny to me? Is how we're opening this universe with a Superman who's at the start of his journey, and we've got a Batman who's a bit later down the line, because he's got all these Robins and all that. Kinda sounds a little bit like Zack Snyder's version, except of course Robin isn't dead. What's that phrase? Something about a blueprint. We then have Booster Gold, who's getting his own HBO Max series, which I think is a great idea. Booster Gold's a very fun character that I think would go great for a TV series, and I think also James Gunn is the perfect man to helm that. I'm not gonna lie, I do get tired of how commonly Chris Pratt is cast as things, but yeah, this is a role that I think Chris Pratt would go well in. So he's kind of a loser from the future who comes back to the past so he can be this cool Giga Chad by the past standards. Sounds fun. I don't know that much about Booster Gold from like the comics or anything, but this concept is ripe for an HBO Max series. So hell yeah, you ain't kidding. Then we've got Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Now, I'm wondering if this is going to utilize Sasha Calais' Supergirl from the Flash movie, or if they're going to be doing a whole new Supergirl, because this does appear to be an origin story. This is based on the Tom King miniseries, and will focus on Supergirl growing up on just this little fragment of Krypton. While, you know, Clark was obviously rocketed towards Earth and raised by loving parents and everything like that, Supergirl was raised in ruin. That sounds like a villain origin story, but it's gonna be cool to see that person become a superhero, I hope. But I like that we're drawing up this juxtaposition between Supergirl and Superman. Cool stuff. And then we seem to be capping things off with a Swamp Thing movie that's going to be deep into the horror genre. Cool. I don't know much about Swamp Thing. I know that he had a TV series at one point which got canned. But yeah, like I think Swamp Thing, it's cool that we're getting a nice healthy mix of lesser known DC characters with already more well-known superhero characters as well. So we're getting characters like Swamp Thing and Booster Gold and the Authority, but we're not losing sight of aspects like Superman, Batman, the Green Lantern, and that's what I was really worried about with the previous Walter Hamada-led DC universe, was I felt like we were losing sight of the legacy characters. With James Gunn's slate, there's a healthy mix. Now, while James Gunn and Peter Safran have asserted that they are primarily focused on one central DC universe, and they want that to be known as the main one, there will also be Elseworlds projects too. And that anything that doesn't factor into this continuity in any way will be labeled an Elseworld project, and it will be made very evident to the audience that these are completely detached from the main universe. So, in terms of our Elseworld projects, we've got The Batman Part 2, set to release in 2025. I loved the first Batman, so hell yeah, I'm game. We've got Joker Folie à Deux. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that's the sequel to the Todd Phillips Joker movie, of course. Superman and Lois will be continuing thanks to its popularity, and there will also be Teen Titans Go enveloped under the DC Elseworlds banner. No mention of the Harley Quinn animated series though, but I think we already know that's going ahead. You know what I find crazy is that we're getting Superman Legacy and The Batman Part 2 in the same year. We're getting a Batman movie and a Superman movie in the same year. The fact that we've got a Batman movie and a Superman movie in the same year with no Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill, it feels like I'm living in a dystopian future where Five Guys has shut down, but I'm eating at this really good new burger place. And while I miss Five Guys, at least I still got my cool new burger place, you know? And like, obviously, I already know I like the Batman. I already know that I like Matt Reeves' approach to the Batman. The Batman was like the fat pig burger from Love Thy Burger, you know? That's a delectable burger. It doesn't compete with, the Five Guys, obviously, because it's a different genre of burger altogether. I'm still eating. That's what I'm saying, is I'm still eating. I'm still happily eating. I miss my Five Guys, you know? The Snyderverse, that was my Five Guys burgers and fries. I guess the difference here is that once you've eaten a burger, you've eaten it, you know? Whereas I'll still have these Blu-rays. You know, I can watch these anytime. Now, I haven't really said this in a video. I'm surprised I haven't theorized more about the Matt Reeves Batman universe on this channel, to be honest, but a lot of people tend to think, or tended to think before, you know, this announcement, that the Batman would introduce Robins in there. And I've always been thinking, like, I don't see where a Robin really fits in this vision. I don't think they're necessarily going to do a Robin in the Batman movies helmed by Matt Reeves. And I think the fact that we are getting a very Robin-centric Batman movie with the James Gunn universe Batman film, you know, that goes to show that, well, it gives credence to the fact that I don't think they're going to have Robins in the Matt Reeves universe. I think that's going to be the juxtaposition, is like in the DCU we're going to get a very comic booky, very classic older Batman who has Robins and the Bat family, whereas the Robert Pattinson Batman stuff is going to focus more on his younger years. It's kind of like, I guess, New 52 juxtaposed with, say, something more along the lines of, like, Batman The Long Halloween. Now, my question is, are they going to retroactively Elseworld previous movies, maybe put the Elseworld banner on movies like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman 1, stuff like that? Because I feel like that's one way of making this make any sense. Otherwise, you can call it Chapter 1 all you like. This stuff still began long before this. Especially if you're going to be keeping actors around. So on the matter of Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, and Jason Momoa, Gunn and Safran have asserted that the door is still open to them. They are yet to have meetings, but from what I gather, the sentiment is if Gal Gadot wants to return as Wonder Woman, she can. Now, here's kind of the thing for me, is that, like, I think if you're changing out Batman and Superman, you gotta change out Wonder Woman as well. The reason I say it is that they are the DC Trinity. It's gonna be so weird having a new Batman and Superman with the same old Wonder Woman, you know? And I don't think that much of Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, unfortunately. I certainly never thought she was, like, within the ranks of, like, Ben Affleck as Batman or Henry Cavill as Superman. Her line delivery is just a bit awkward, generally. But she did well with the physicality of the role, especially in, like, the Snyder films. Yeah, I don't know about Gal Gadot continuing as Wonder Woman. I'm not really a huge fan of Gal Gadot's portrayal of Wonder Woman. Jason Momoa, they've asserted the door's open for him, but they don't really have any immediate plans. Which is weird considering we're getting an Aquaman movie after the big Flashpoint event that's going to reset this universe. So what, is he just going to have a very slow evolution into a new actor if we get a new actor? Or is that going to be retroactively dubbed an Elseworld movie? I'm just imagining, like, James Gunn with, like, a roll of stickers at, like, a superstore, and he's in the Blu-ray aisle, and he's going up to all these old DC movies and just slapping an Elseworld sticker on it. This is still a mess, alright? Like, maybe as things come out later, things will be cleared up more, but right now, it's still a mess. And then there's Ezra Miller, an actor with a very problematic past, including assaults, allegations of grooming, kidnapping, trespassing, robbery, all that. Now, I will say this, upon further research, a lot of these accusations have been very embellished by headlines. Things like grooming and kidnapping and stuff like that, highly embellished. Like the whole kidnapping story, from what I understood, like, you know, they found like a woman who was kidnapped in, you know, Ezra Miller's home, and they had loads of guns everywhere. This is all purely anecdotal, so don't quote me on this. Like, this is an anecdote of an article I read, so again, yeah. The story was that this woman was someone Ezra knew when this woman was very young, and she got into like a very abusive relationship, so Ezra Miller let her stay at their home and gave them guns to protect themselves. Now, there's still a lot of things like assaults and stuff, and like, yeah, from what I gather, you know, Ezra Miller is a loose cannon, someone who's mentally unwell at the moment, and that's something that Ezra Miller has admitted to, and the story goes that they're getting help, and like, yeah, James Gunn and Peter Safran have kind of just said that they want to support Ezra Miller in that, and that they'll have the conversation about the Flash when Ezra Miller is ready. So what I'm saying is I kind of want to take things off the table in regard to the problematic side of Ezra Miller. I don't really want to talk about that so much now, because it is clear that, yeah, the media have kind of preyed on Ezra Miller to an extent. I'm not defending them, and I'm not really... Like, I guess I will condemn things like, you know, assault and stuff like that. Yeah, that's not okay. And I would say, you know, I do think an actor playing a superhero should still be kind of a positive role model, and I don't think Ezra Miller is that, at least not yet, got a long way to go. But my main view is that Ezra Miller plays a very specific version of Barry Allen, a very quirky version, and I think if we're doing this core DC Universe thing, I think we need to have a Flash that is closer to the core DC Barry Allen. Maybe they can achieve that with Ezra Miller, but I just think we shouldn't have these Snyderverse leftovers here. It should be homegrown at this point. And you know what? That applies to the entire Snyderverse Justice League, okay? Like, Zack Snyder's Justice League, one of my favorite movies ever, and I don't want to see pieces of that bolted onto something new. I would rather have something new and homegrown. Maybe they can make it work, maybe I'll be proven wrong, but right now, as it stands, I think the core Justice League cast should be entirely recast. From the sound of things, though, like, the mentality is if the actors want to come back, they can. Now, that kind of leads me to the subject of the big blue elephant in the room, Henry Cavill. So, two people we know aren't returning for definite are Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill. Now, in fairness, Ben Affleck stepped down from the role of Batman voluntarily, which kind of makes this all look like screw this guy in particular when it comes to Henry Cavill. James Gunn has commented on the matter of Henry Cavill. And you know what? He's been quite open, quite honest about how DC have treated Henry Cavill in the past. He has said that Henry Cavill has been dicked about quite a bit by the old leadership. And yeah, like, no contracts were signed for any further Man of Steel movies, yet they announced his comeback. Yeah, that's a failure on the previous leadership. So speaking on this, James Gunn said that Henry Cavill was never fired because he was never hired in the first place to play Superman in Superman Legacy. He thinks Henry Cavill's a great guy and a great Superman, but that, like, you know, the Superman that he has in mind for Superman Legacy, the kind of Superman he wants fronting the DCU going forward, is not the Henry Cavill one. It's not one that Henry Cavill could even play. Now, I guess that's kind of fair, but I still think that these points can be critiqued. Because you could say that Henry Cavill was hired to play Superman for the DC universe, alongside Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Ezra Miller as The Flash, and Jason Momoa as Aquaman. They get a chance to keep their roles, yet Henry Cavill doesn't. You can talk contracts all you want. Henry Cavill was heavily advertised as returning as Superman, and now he isn't. But I get that James Gunn wants his own Superman, wants his own version of Superman. But what you could say is that maybe that's a lack of restraint, you know? Maybe you should work with what you have already, considering you're willing to do that with characters like Wonder Woman, The Flash, and Aquaman. Ben Affleck, I get it, he stepped down. I get that, you have to do a new Batman there. But that's why I still have this all or nothing mentality, is, yeah, technically he wasn't fired, technically there were no contracts, but as far as the perception of this is concerned, if you're still using The Flash as a launch pad for this, you have a universe where Henry Cavill was once Superman, he's not Superman anymore. You have a universe where Gal Gadot may still be Wonder Woman, Ezra Miller may still be The Flash, Jason Momoa may still be Aquaman, but Henry Cavill isn't Superman anymore. You see how that looks? So I'm not assuming any ill intent, but I'm also saying that the points made about Henry Cavill are still not above critique. At the end of the day, I might be eating these words, I might see Superman Legacy and be like, yeah, this was worth it, you know? At the end of the day, I remember how bummed out I was when I found out that Ben Affleck wouldn't be returning as Batman in The Batman, but I ended up loving Robert Pattinson's Batman just as much. I think what's likely to happen is the same will probably apply to Superman, but it won't change the fact that we didn't get any closure with the Henry Cavill version, who was a really good version of Superman and a more integral part of that universe than Ben Affleck's Batman was. It doesn't change the fact that you're still willing to use elements of a DC universe without the foundation they were built upon. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman was introduced in a movie starring Henry Cavill as Superman, as was Ezra Miller's Flash and Jason Momoa's Aquaman. And I would really love to hear if we're getting a new Cyborg movie. So, my issue here is we're still very unclear what kind of reboot this is. We're building new foundations while not knowing who is going to play Wonder Woman, not knowing who is going to play The Flash, not knowing who's going to play Aquaman, not knowing what kind of versions we're going with. It's still a bit of a mess. At the same time, there's a lot that sounds promising. The individual films that they have advertised here all sound good. I'm liking the sound of all of this. I think I'm most excited for Superman Legacy and The Brave and the Bold. Of course, if we're not including Elseworlds projects. Otherwise, the thing I'm most excited for is The Batman Part 2, because I loved The Batman. So, as I kind of say, what's ultimately going to determine all of this is the quality of these movies coming out. They're going to have to be very, very good. And I fully believe that James Gunn can achieve that. I believe in his, willingness to enlist the right people. I believe in his choices. I've tried his cooking. It's good stuff, so maybe he can make a burger that's just as good as Five Guys. One more little footnote. Peter Safran commented on the Batgirl movie and its cancellation. And this is one of those instances where it would have been better to just not say anything at all. And I get it, sometimes journalists ask you these questions. Would have been better to just not have said anything, just said no comment. Peter Safran basically just filleted David Zaslav, saying that the film was unreleasable and that it would have hurt DC. I'm not hearing any comments from you about how, say, Joss Whedon's Justice League objectively hurt DC. I don't know how I feel about Peter Safran, I'm gonna be real. It would have been better to just not say anything because that's such a callous way of treating your industry peers. Way to throw the people working on Batgirl under the bus, Peter Safran. Well, there you go. DC has a future. Good or bad, it's got one. Messy or not, it's got one. You guys know me, I was a die-hard Snyderverse fan. I absolutely loved Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I'm gonna say this, we got 3 of the best comic book movies ever made out of this, in my opinion anyway. And we'll always have those movies, I'll always be able to go back and revisit them. Listen, I felt the same way about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but that doesn't stop me from looking forward to every Tom Holland Spider-Man film that's coming out. Do I think the MCU Spider-Man is as good as the Raimi Spider-Man? No, but that doesn't stop me from enjoying it for what it is, and I'm gonna go into the new DC universe with the same attitude. I'm looking forward to new adventures. I'm looking forward to a new Superman, a new Batman. I'm looking forward to these new stories, some of these superheroes that I've never even heard of before, such as the Authority. I am more positive than not. I would say I'm about 65% positive on this. I guess I'm at this point like, DC, I can see you're doing cool things, but your scars are still showing. And that's unfortunate, as this was a chance to finally get rid of all that. A final note on Henry Cavill's Superman as well is, I mentioned that I was hoping that Superman Legacy wouldn't just fillet the Richard Donner films. As much as I love those films, I don't think we need to constantly, refer back to them as that's all Superman is. And the chances are, if Henry Cavill had stuck around, he would have become a Christopher Reeve analog. You might have had Henry Cavill playing him, you might have had that costume design, but he would have been rocking up, acting like the Christopher Reeve Superman with the John Williams theme, and I wouldn't want that. I feel like maybe I'd rather have a brand new Superman than see, the Snyder Superman get completely gutted. Let's see how it goes, I guess. Let's just see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. And, if nothing else, we're getting some entertainment out of it, So that's where I stand. What do you guys think? Are you optimistic? Are you not so optimistic? Comment below, discuss, and maybe save it with the sell the Snyderverse to Netflix hashtags, because that just isn't going to happen. That is not how the industry works. As much as I'd like that wouldn't happen. All right, everybody, I've blabbered on for long enough. Until the next time, catch you later. I say, you've made it to the end of the video! Congrats. No, but seriously, thanks a bunch for watching. And just now, I'll be extending a special thanks to the patrons in the $10 tier, who are Adam Mize, Ken K, Legendary Ray Ray, Mr. SP, Sergio, That Jordo, and Where's Arnold? What an amazing and generous bunch of people. Thank you guys so much for your support. And if you want to join the ranks of these amazing people right here, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Guys, these are not the easiest times in the world financially, so every little bit you folks are donating is doing wonders. I really would love to be able to do YouTube as a proper fully fledged career someday. It might just be a pipe dream, but maybe you guys can prove some people wrong. But of course, if donations aren't your thing, then, well, it means plenty to me that you just hit that cute little subscribe button over there. I didn't mean hit that way. Well, that's me done for today. Thanks a whole bunch for your support, and have a fantastic day. I'm gonna see you so soon.